We are here. We are back. Welcome back to the Bleeding Grave, episode 4.
Episode 4. Here we are.
Here we are. Hannah, it's been a week since we recorded, and it's been a week since we've seen each other. What has been going on?
Not much. Not much. Just had a very busy week last week at work, and then spent Sunday night editing the 3rd episode so that it could come out with the first 2 on Monday, which we have had a lot of great feedback from. So thank you, everybody.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Honestly, it means a lot to us. We appreciate it. We appreciate everything. So if you're listening to this and I've said thank you or Hannah said thank you to you or we haven't yet, but you've given us feedback on social media, we really do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It means the world to us.
How are you?
I am doing quite well myself. Over the last week, it was stressful at work last week, the last couple of days, but it was a chill weekend. And I mean, there's nothing too much.
Yeah.
Nothing too much going on. Everything's kind of settling down now, heading into spring. So it's kind of
good.
It's kind of nice. So yeah. Have you checked the podcast email lately?
I guess it's been a couple days. Now
Okay,
good. About it.
Good. Because I was hoping it was going to be a surprise. So as of today, we are now the official owners of thebleedinggrave.com.
Ooh.
We have our website.
That's crazy. I was thinking about that earlier today. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking care of that.
Yeah, it wasn't too terrible. Now it's basically just designing the site. I don't know when it's going to come out, but we're going to make sure that our website looks to how we want it to.
Yeah.
Before publishing it, but it is ours and no one can have it. Mm-hmm. We're good for the next 2 years, by the way.
Sweet. Yeah, so once we get that up, I know we were planning on publishing episodes on there as well. So in case somebody doesn't have an account with one of our services or doesn't want to use YouTube or whatever, they can just go right to our website and listen to it.
Absolutely. And I mean, there will also be a lot of other things that'll go on our website
absolutely.
too. So
there's going to be plenty going on there.
Yeah.
I also want to say thank you to Austin for getting the foam for our microphones because I'm just admiring how much better we both sound having the foam for the microphones. So thank you. It's the little things.
it is the little things that just makes everything, like, you wouldn't think something is such a piece of foam that probably only cost a penny to make would be such an impact and made us giddy.
Yeah, so we are aware of the sound quality issues in the first few episodes, and hopefully those will be changing going forward.
Absolutely. Can only get better with every episode, I'd say.
We're just going with the flow, figuring it out as we go, which probably isn't the best way to do it, but it's what we're doing.
You know what? Flying by the seat of my pants is how I've made it to 29. So
you made it this far.
I've made it this far. Yes, I have made it this far, and you will make it this far as well, unless World War III breaks out, because that seems to be more and more inevitable as every imminent passing day.
I don't want to think about it.
Yes, let's not think about it.
So let's think about something else that will potentially ruin our day. I know Austin has something he wanted to tell us about. We're going to try to do that at the beginning of the episode instead of in the middle and just like a tangent.
We'll say, sorry about, or if anyone found that it just didn't flow right compared to the other 2 episodes, that would be my bad. So as for today, so if anyone remembers from episode 3, I gave Hannah the choice of having a "what the hell is wrong with you?" or something to really fuck up your day. Mm-hmm. So
I've mentally prepared over the last week.
Yes.
Here we go.
Okay. So this has to go with billionaires.
Of course it does.
5 years ago, how many billionaires do you think there were in the world?
Like 5?
No, they were still close to 1,000. They were still close to 1,000.
Billionaire? Okay.
Billionaires. Like even 5 years ago, it was like, I think in the States, it was like 500-600 billionaires. But as of today, there are 2,668 billionaires in the world. And those over 2,600 billionaires have over $12 trillion worth of wealth. So let me give you perspective of how much 12 trillion is. Let's do it in seconds. 1 million seconds. Can you guess how many days that is?
I've heard it, but I can't remember.
So 1 million seconds is 11 and a half days.
Okay.
1 billion seconds is a little over 31 years.
Great.
Like from a million to a billion.
Yeah.
Now, can you guess what a billion to a trillion is?
No.
31,709 years. A little over that.
Okay, so we went from within a lifetime to like within lifetimes.
Lifetimes. Now, 12 trillion is it's a ridiculous number, but 12 trillion is 380,517 years if it's 12 trillion seconds.
I hate it.
Now, you're really going to hate this. 1% of the billionaires owns half the world's owns half the world's wealth. I know.
Oh my God.
1% of them own half the world's entire wealth. That's 26 of them.
Gross.
That's fucked up in my opinion.
Especially considering money's made up.
It's a literal human construct.
It's not real.
No. Well, do you think we should get into it?
We should probably get into it. Do you want to flip a coin?
Yeah. Ladies first again?
Sure. Tails.
Tails. Okay. And indeed it is tails. Hannah, why don't you start us off on episode 4?
So are you ready for a spooky story?
I am ready for a spooky story. Give it to me.
So I kind of gave it away earlier when we were waiting for stuff. I didn't mean to. Today we're going to be talking about Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
You did say that.
I did say it.
I totally forgot about that. Was even like right before we were going to record,
Yep.
too. Like, no,
It came out of my mouth, and as I was talking, I was like, yeah, you gave it away.
You had the best poker face. Let me tell you that. You had the best poker face. I didn't know. Like, honestly, when you were saying that, I was thinking about what we were talking about earlier while my computer was when it was updating.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I was trying to figure out. I was thinking back. I'm like, but I didn't.
Yeah, because you were like half paying attention. I was talking about something else, but this was included in it.
Well, because you were talking about how you were going to word something on this, and that's kind of what I focused on when you were like, I kind of mentioned something like this, but the Waverly Hills, you mentioned like literally I did 30 seconds before we turned on
verbatim.
everything.
I said Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
So, anyways, if you haven't noticed yet, Hannah's going to talk about Waverly Hills Sanatorium.
All right. So, this is potentially one of the most haunted places in the country. Waverly Hills Sanatorium is located in Louisville, Kentucky. The land it sits on was originally purchased in 1883 by Major Thomas H. Hayes. Hayes opened a one-room schoolhouse for his daughters to attend and hired Lizzie Lee Harris to be the teacher. Lizzie loved the Waverly novels by Sir Walter Scott. And these books were some of the most popular novels of the 19th century. These books gave her the idea to name the school Waverly School. Major Hayes liked the name enough to name his property Waverly Hill. Because the property was on a hill, so Waverly Hill.
I'm right on the nose, but okay.
Eventually, the Board of Tuberculosis Hospital purchased the land, and they decided to keep the name. Construction on the original sanatorium building started in 1908. The doors were opened July 26, 1910. The two-story building was meant to accommodate 40 to 50 TB patients safely. Keyword safely. So before we get too far into the sanatorium, I want to talk about tuberculosis a little bit. So it's also known as consumption or the white plague due to the pale skin tone that patients would get from it.
Those pictures of tuberculosis patients is quite frightening.
Yeah. So according to the CDC, tuberculosis is a disease caused by germs that are spread from person to person through the air. TB usually affects the lungs, but it can also affect other parts of the body, such as the brain, the kidneys, or the spine. A person with TB can die if they do not get treatment. Symptoms include feelings of being sick or weakness, night sweats, weight loss, and a fever. Tuberculosis, specifically of the lungs, results in symptoms of coughing, chest pain, and coughing up blood.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty gnarly. It's really rough. Between 1895 and 1954, TB was an epidemic in the United States. Because consumption was so highly contagious, part of the treatment was isolation from the public. It was also thought that fresh air helped to relieve the symptoms, so many sanatoriums were built on hilltops or in the woods.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. I mean, that makes sense.
Until the antibiotics that could treat and cure tuberculosis were discovered, treatment was mostly rest, good, nutritious food, fresh air, and sunshine.
I mean, all the standard stuff that you should do when you're sick.
It's just the standard way you should live.
That too. Nutritious, sunlight, fresh air. Absolutely.
Good rest, yeah.
Oh, man.
According to the World Health Organization's Global Tuberculosis Report, in 2021, 10.6 million people had TB and 1.6 million people died from it. They actually saw an uptick in it because of COVID and people either not going in to get treatment because of COVID or not being able to go in and get treatment because of COVID.
Oh, okay. I see. That's unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate. The Waverly Hills website described it as being a self-contained community. It had its own zip code, its own post office, and water treatment facility. I also read somewhere that they had their own slaughterhouse, which makes sense because they also grew their own produce and raised livestock for meat.
Oh, so they're like a self-sustaining little community here. Wow, that's way more than I thought this sanatorium would ever be.
Well, and part of that
sanatorium.
Part of that is because everyone, and this includes patients, doctors, nurses, and any other staff, had to leave their lives outside of the property behind and become a permanent resident.
Wow.
This is mostly due to how contagious it was.
Yeah.
Even though there was a visiting day for loved ones of patients who could come and visit and then just leave and go back.
So
but you have to remember that they didn't really understand how tuberculosis was spread at the time. For the majority of when this was a problem.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I'm going to say, it just sounds so backwards.
Yeah. I mean, look at how far things have come in the last 150 years as far as medicine goes. A lot of what we have now is from the last 100 to 150 years.
Yeah.
By 1915, it was stated that the capacity of this first building was of 170 patients of all stages of disease. And I would like to remind you that this original building was built to accommodate 40 to 50 patients, and they're at 170. Overcrowding becomes a theme of this facility throughout its history. Ooh. Which has been a theme with a lot of sanatoriums and buildings of the like.
I could imagine. And it could be for any purpose, money-wise, or...
It's usually just for lack of space, and then frequently there's usually not enough staff to keep up with it, so...
Oh, okay.
All right. Eventually, in 1924, the 5-story building that we now know as Waverly Hills was starting to be constructed, and it would open in October of 1926. This building was meant to house upwards of 400 tuberculosis patients.
Oh, so they in fact did learn...
They learned.
Or I should say in the beginning they learned that, hey, we should probably build a bigger area or bigger space.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to note that this new building only housed the white patients. Yeah.
Well, I spoke too soon.
People of color were housed in an outdated wooden building that lacked most accommodations. And it wasn't until the 1940s that the segregated facility had any updates or improvements made.
Almost 20 years.
Or almost somewhere around 20 years.
Were they even getting adequate care even in here?
Probably not.
It was basically like, here, go to this wooden shed to die, is basically what they're saying.
Yeah. And
Jesus.
The thing about tuberculosis was even in this new facility that was supposed to be so good, the majority of patients died. Not many people left alive. And that was just very common. That was just how it was.
With no actual proven treatments besides fresh air, sunshine, nutrition. I can see that.
Yeah. So the new building was considered to be one of the most well-equipped and modern facilities of the time.
Okay.
Even so, patients were subjected to archaic treatment of the disease, like surgeries that would temporarily collapse the lungs or forced exposure to extreme weather conditions. So let's get into a couple of these.
Yeah.
Doctors would collapse or remove part of the lungs because it was thought to be giving the organ a rest. But as you can imagine, this is very painful.
Remove it to give it rest.
Either remove it or just collapse the lung so it's not doing its job to give this infected organ a rest.
Okay. I'm speechless on that one.
Yep. It gets worse.
Oh, God.
Surgeons would also perform surgeries to remove ribs from the chest cavity, leaving patients down 7 or 8 ribs on average. But this would happen over the course of multiple surgeries, taking only 1 or 2 ribs at a time.
they're subjecting these patients to multiple rib removals. Mm-hmm. Ouch.
And they're cracking the ribs out, basically. Like they're going to have to break them.
Oh yeah, because I bet they don't have like the saws and everything. But
No.
I mean, does it say why they were taking out these ribs?
Yeah, to give the infected lungs more room to do their job, so that they weren't trapped. But they usually removed, if I remember correctly, ribs from the top of your rib cage.
Oh.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Less than 5% of these patients survived.
No shit.
Yeah.
You're taking out ribs because you think that the lungs need more room to... Lungs, I'm sorry, lungs only expand. I mean, they didn't know very much back then, but...
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
They were... I mean, if this epidemic was going on since the late 1800s and it's the 1920s, 1930s, they're probably fucking desperate at this point. Try anything.
I mean, they were doing ice pick lobotomies back then, too.
That's going to be a whole other episode, but...
Yeah.
And these patients were trusting these doctors because these people were supposed to be taking care of them.
I mean, who else can you trust if not a surgeon or a doctor or a nurse?
Yep. And so as far as that forced exposure to extreme weather, that had to do with the fresh air thing. It's like, it doesn't matter what the weather's like, you're going to get fresh air.
So they were putting these people outside even if there was like a thunderstorm or something?
Mm-hmm. Thunderstorms, probably snow, extreme heat. So I know that the new building was built specifically to have kind of open air areas that were kind of like patios or balconies for
like
this,
a three-season
but
porch.
They also used the rooftop for a type of therapy where, and I think I only read this in one source, so
how legitimate is it?
I don't know how legitimate it is, but with what we know about old medical practices, I wouldn't be terribly surprised.
Old medical practices? You mean barbaric?
Barbaric medical practices. Chest cavity open, lungs in the air, in direct sunlight.
No.
Yeah.
No. Hannah, no. That's... Oh, God, no. No, seriously, what the fuck? I just want to get this straight. Because I am imagining somebody in a wheelchair right now.
They're
literally...
on a table.
Oh, okay. They're on a table, like a cadaver, chest wide open, and organs just doing their thing while it's getting sunlight.
That's what I read. That's basically what I read, yep.
What the actual fuck?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No thanks. Okay.
So you can see why this would be a piece of property, a building that is heavily imprinted with negative energy that would leave it haunted.
Absolutely.
So we're not quite done with the history yet.
Good.
In 1961, the sanatorium would close following the discovery and distribution of an antibiotic that would treat and cure consumption, which made the facility obsolete. It was closed down, quarantined, and then renovated. After renovation, in 1962, the building became Woodhaven Medical Services, a geriatric nursing home. Woodhaven treated patients with varying stages of dementia, mental illness, and mobility issues. Woodhaven was closed down by the state in 1981 due to an investigation that brought to light patient neglect, insect infestations, malpractice, and subpar living conditions, all of which were due to severe understaffing and being overcrowded with patients.
So the trend continues.
The trend continues.
You renovate this, but you're still understaffed. You still have an influx of patients that you just can't keep up with. Mm-hmm. Wow. There's got to be, honestly, and it's just the way I'm going, it's got to be, money driven. To have this overcrowdedness.
To a certain point, or just no other options around. There's so many factors that can go into it.
True.
Over the years, the property was purchased by a few different people who had ideas of what to do with it. One idea had been plans of a minimum security prison, which was shut down by the surrounding counties and communities because they did not want that. And another plan was making the building a chapel, theater, and gift shop and building a very large statue of Jesus on top. That did not go through.
Okay.
Because this was a very spendy project that would have had to be crowdfunded, and after about a year of trying to crowdfund, they only made about $3,000 versus the over $1 million that they needed.
$1 million back when, did you say?
I think this one was in the 80s.
Oh, the 80s.
80s or 90s.
Okay.
So
I mean,
it's still a lot of money.
Yeah, I was going to say
we were just talking about that.
Right, like, no shit. I mean, compared to what we do nowadays, that's not that much, but I was thinking like $1 million back in like the 40s. I was like, what cost them? Like, I knew things cost $1 million back then, but I didn't think something like that would.
I do think that when this new building was built, it was over $1 million too.
Oh, back in the 40s even?
Would have been in the 20s.
Or 20s. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
You need to remember, this is a 5-story state-of-the-art medical facility back then that can house over 400 patients.
That's right. Okay, so...
And then they needed grounds for staff to live on.
True. So I guess because I'm thinking like just the building itself. But yeah, if you're talking about like all the livestock and its own water filtration and housing the staff and everything, so that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
So in 2001, it was purchased by the current owners, who then, I believe it was them who founded the Waverly Hills Historical Society, and this society continues to restore and maintain the property now. So, it's believed that more than 50,000 people died at this facility during its time as a tuberculosis facility, but I've seen a few sources that say that was a very over-exaggerated number, and it was likely more, somewhere around 6,000 to 8,000.
Oh, so it could have very much over-exaggerated.
Yeah, but regardless, this is, a facility that's covering a county of people, right?
Right.
It's a county facility, so that's still a lot of people.
Still a lot of people, but I guess, would there be people that come from across the state and across the country for
Probably,
this?
Probably, but when you also think about, again, the fact that, say, it's holding 400 patients.
Right. I guess there'd be more at a local level.
How many times over of the capacity that the people have died?
True. Yeah.
So... the bodies of the deceased were disposed of using a 500-foot supply tunnel that came out near the railroad in an attempt to keep the patients oblivious to the amount of deaths occurring. This tunnel system became known as the body chute and is still known by that today.
Gross.
Mm-hmm. And this is where they would bring supplies into the facility, but they would also use it to cart bodies out.
Oh, okay.
Discreetly. Like I said, Waverly Hills is believed to be one of the most haunted places in the U.S.
I mean, from everything you have just stated so far, there's no surprise as to why.
Yep. All right, the hauntings. So I actually had a hard time compiling a list of the hauntings because I was looking for like specific stories. So after reading many a blog post and article and watching an episode of Ghost Adventures, I have something for you.
Yes. Okay.
Some of the common types of things that occur are disembodied voices, odd smells, and physical sensations like being touched or getting headaches. One of the most well-known and favorite hauntings is Timmy, a young boy who will play with toys brought to him or roll balls down the hall. He's also sometimes seen with like a leather ball.
Like an old leather ball from like the 20s kind of deal.
Yeah.
Ooh, creepy.
Mm-hmm. If you thought that was creepy.
I mean, probably to the point of what most stuff creeps me out, but I mean, that's still creepy.
This next one is a darker entity known as the Creeper.
No thanks.
He's seen on the 4th floor. The spirit is a shadow figure known to crawl on the walls, floors, and ceilings.
I would nope right out of there so quick.
One person who has seen them stated that they've seen him like walk out and he just like falls to the floor and starts crawling.
No thanks. No. Oh my God.
Absolutely not.
I would Scooby-Doo myself out.
You got the little dust trail behind you.
Zoinks.
From what I can tell, it seems like the 4th floor is the most active area. Many have said that they have a heavy feeling wash over them when they get to this floor.
Was the 4th floor more like for all the death patient or like the deceased patients?
So from what I could tell, the floors were kind of split up by severity of the disease by case. So the 4th floor probably would have been the somewhat more severe cases. I think there were also different treatment rooms.
Okay, and I would assume that people died in these treatment rooms then probably.
Probably.
I mean, at the same time, with the lack of information of what went on down there too, well, a lot of things, I mean, it's left to your imagination at that point.
Really. One of the most active spots of the building is room 502. A nurse allegedly hung herself in this room.
Oof.
Depending on the story, some say it was because an abusive staff member impregnated her, or it was due to a failed abortion.
Oh.
About 4 years later, another nurse is said to have thrown herself off of a 5th-floor balcony.
Did that have a story behind as to why she yeeted herself off?
No, from what I could tell, nobody really knew why. Supposedly, neither of these stories have been confirmed, but I know that the owner of the property has stated the one about the pregnant nurse was true.
I mean, I could see that one more with more information, but at the same time, I could see just someone throwing themselves off of a building like that. I mean, to know. Well,
imagine if you have to throw away your whole life outside of there.
True, and you're just surrounded by death all the time. Like
not everybody is equipped for that, and that's okay.
Yeah. But that's 100% okay. And it's like you're not cut out for that kind of work. But at the same time, I could see...
It's tough if you're in a situation where you've basically been told, if you come to work here, this is where you're going to work.
Right. And
forever.
Is the light dims on like having to have that cure?
Exactly.
I mean, I could see why. If that's the case. I mean, it's all speculation at that point. But yeah.
So there's an apparition of a man in a lab coat countless people have seen throughout the building, presumably a former doctor. In the tunnels, many have heard voices and footsteps. It's one of the more haunted places too, by my understanding.
And when you say tunnels, like the body chutes? Okay.
Yep, the body chute.
The body chute.
There's a little girl that can be seen running around on the 3rd floor.
See, little ghost children freak me out. I don't like that.
I'm less afraid of ghost children, and I don't know why. Which I know I should be, because there are theories out there that a lot of demonic entities will present as children to gain your trust.
Exactly. But no, I ain't about it. Like ghost children, like if I'm
I don't know,
in a dark,
I'm just unhinged, and that's why I've heard a lot of really cute stories about ghost children.
Oh yeah, same. But I've heard more demonic, fucked up stories of ghost children. Like if I heard a little giggle or a ball rolling somewhere, I'm not staying there. Nuh-uh. Like if I have cameras,
so you probably won't last long here.
I mean, I'll give it the old college try
because I'm bringing toys for Timmy.
I mean, Timmy's one thing.
You're like, Timmy's cool. Timmy's fine. We're good with Timmy.
If Timmy's just rolling balls, okay. I know Timmy. But if I go to like a place and
what if he hucks a ball at you, though?
Fuck Timmy. Hucking a ball at me. No.
Hucking a ball at me.
You don't do that. Because if you can huck the ball at me, I can't huck the ball at you. It's an eye for an eye.
All right. I think this is one of my favorite ones. Apparently a hearse has appeared behind the building and dropped coffins off, like a ghost hearse and ghost coffins.
Honestly, that's the first time I've ever heard of a ghost hearse dropping off ghost coffins. Like, out of all the haunting stuff I've heard and paranormal stuff, I've never heard what you just said there. But I am at the same time here for it. I'm here for it.
I support that one 100%. I'll sign the paper. I'll sign the ghost paperwork for the ghost coffins.
Get that ghost invoice.
Lights have been seen in windows at night, even when there's no power to the building or people inside. Yeah. In the kitchen and cafeteria, some say there are clear smells of bread baking or meals being cooked.
I mean, ghost food or not, that's got to smell good.
And Ghost Adventures,
freshly baked bread.
One of the guys said that it smelled like chili in the morgue, and they were like, dude, what?
I don't know if that's delicious or unnerving if it's in the morgue.
Right.
Exactly. Does that kind of go along with human candles?
Oh, God. Moving along. Some people have experienced objects being thrown at them or being hit by unseen hands.
See, fuck Timmy.
You don't know that it's Timmy.
We don't know it's not Timmy either.
I don't think Timmy's throwing hands.
How do we know?
I just don't think he is. Some have had experiences with doppelgangers within the building as well. One story comes from someone who teaches paranormal classes at Waverly Hills. After classes, he lets students go through the building and do some ghost hunting. While he was on a completely different floor, a group saw him come down the stairs, look at them, turn around, and go into one of the rooms. When they saw him later, they scolded him for scaring them and for hiding from them, and he had no clue what they were talking about.
Yeah, no thanks.
He said that people have even seen him when he's not even on the property.
So this is just a ghost taking his form.
It's a doppelganger.
Now, so I'm not from, like, I know what a doppelganger
We
is,
can
but there's
do a whole episode.
but there is lore out there of spirits or some type of entity that is legitly a doppelganger.
There is a lot of lore.
But is that a shapeshifter though? Because is a doppelganger not a shapeshifter, and they're two different things?
I can't answer that question without actually getting into what a doppelganger is, but in this story, a doppelganger is a spirit that looks like somebody else.
Okay, so I expect a full episode on the differences.
We'll do a doppelganger episode in the
awesome.
nearish future.
Nearish future. Okay, awesome. I look forward to that.
Tour guides have experienced doors being slammed shut on their own. Just
normal ghost things.
Yeah, normal ghosty things. So let's get into the Ghost Adventure episode a little bit. I want to say that this was one of their earlier episodes. It was in, depending on the source you look at, season 3 or 4. I did watch the episode today. It was season 4 on Discovery Plus.
Okay.
This was before it really turned into the Zach Bagans show, and it was just them instigating. This was when they would come in and be like, hello, we're here, we want to communicate with you, we're sorry about what happened to you.
Like actual true ghost hunter stuff and not for TV and to piss off spirits.
Yeah. That's the only reason why I am really referencing this episode, was because it was before it got to what it is now. So during the Ghost Adventures interview, off screen, the person that was being interviewed by Zach Bagans saw a door move on its own down the hall from where they were standing. So the door was off screen. You were looking at Zach and Homeboy. They walk down the hall. Zach pulls out an audio recorder and asks if anyone is there with them. When he plays it back, you can hear a voice say, "Give me a break," as well as... Okay, so it wasn't that like that. It was more like, I want to go back to that multiple surgery thing. It sounded like somebody who was exhausted and was like, "Give me a break."
Oh, I mean that would definitely make sense.
Yeah. And then there was also an unexplained whistle a couple seconds later in the background. Supposedly, the whistle is a common catch and usually comes before some sort of attack from a spirit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ghost Adventures also came across some intelligent hauntings while they were there, with one spirit stepping away from a sensor when asked to after setting it off, and then using the sensor to answer questions. They caught many EVPs. I put a couple down here, but there was a lot of them. I thought these two were some of the most clear ones. One voice saying, "Remember me," after asking their name. And then another responded with, "That would be evil," after Zach asked them to stand near him. And it sounded like a little boy. So in my head, it's probably like a young boy from quite a while ago who is talking to this, who is aware of this man from the future, who's like, "Come stand by me." And he's like, "No, that would be evil."
Do you think it's kind of like on that TikTok trend, what would send a Victorian child to their grave?
Zach Bagans with a fucking voice recorder. And the last bullet point I have here is that many people claim to feel like they're being watched as soon as they enter the building.
That I could definitely see. I mean, you probably experience it more than I do when it comes to like otherworldly beings.
Oh yeah,
or spirits.
I can feel them immediately.
So I know like one of the last like times I felt like something like watching me was at during one of the or just this last dead end of season trip that we do.
Yeah.
And we went to the old Joliet prison, which is a men's prison, which is part of a historical society now.
Yeah.
And the Joliet haunt is actually in the in the women's prison.
Okay.
And when I was in there, man, did I feel like I had all eyes on
Those girls were all over you.
Oh my God. Every time I passed by a cell, I just got this heavy feeling. Every single time every time we passed by one, it was, and then especially I was at the back of the pack, and I was like, man, their tour guide, one of the managers or the owners of the haunt, he overheard me say, "I felt something heavy over here," and there's like, oh yeah, a lot of on this area here, a lot of deaths happen between inmates.
Oh.
Well, Hannah, I did thoroughly enjoy your story.
Thank you.
Like, I've heard of Waverly Hills, but I've actually never taken the time to look into it more. So, I mean, that's bonkers. And still, fuck to me.
I think my brother was the first person who introduced me to Waverly Hills. He was watching some sort of documentary or haunted show or something on it.
Josh?
Josh.
That would make more sense.
Probably when I was in high school, I think. And then a friend of mine recently reminded me of it, and I was like, that's going to be a big one. All right. Well, do you want to tell me your story?
So, anyways, are you ready for a theory?
A theory? Is your whole thing a theory today?
Oh, it's a theory. It's a conspiracy theory.
Oh, it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, so like I wanted to be a little more lighthearted.
Okay.
So it's a little more lighthearted with it's a conspiracy theory, and I think I enjoy this conspiracy theory. I talk about this one quite a little bit with my coworkers over the last week. They don't know that this is actually what I'm covering this week, but I was like, I'm fascinated by this. So
right.
This conspiracy theory is the ice wall theory. Have you heard of this?
I have, but I don't think I actually know what it is.
Okay. The ice wall theory. So think of the ice wall theory as like a main umbrella, right? Mm-hmm. So now there's like two main theories that are underneath this. So the first theory is that what is being told to us that is the continent of Antarctica is actually a wall of ice around the diameter of the Earth that's holding all the water in. So that's one of them. The other one is that this ice wall is a ring, and there's multiple rings. Like, we are at the center, and if we were to go over that ring...
Is this a flat Earth thing?
How did you know?
Is this you telling me you're a flat earther?
I am definitely not a flat earther. No, I just find this... So I find flat Earth conspiracy theories super entertaining. Super entertaining.
Entertaining. Fair.
And that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to do something entertaining this week. I did like 3 morbid stories in a row. I'm like, let's get a little lightheartedness here.
All right. Well, yeah, give us that palate cleanser, because mine was a little heavier this week.
Yes.
Anyway.
So here's the palate cleanser. So like I was saying, we have there's that other one is multiple rings, and we're at the center. And if you were to go over that wall, you would find more continents and more water, and so on and so forth. This also, ice wall theory kind of ties into prison theory, which I will dabble in a little bit, but there is definitely a whole episode's worth of information on prison theory. So what flat earthers claim what the ice wall is like I said, holds the water in from just pouring out, going into space.
Of course, obviously, because what is space supposed to do with the water?
Exactly. And flat earthers are always like, well, why is there so much mystery around Antarctica? No one can go down there. There's only military down there.
There's not only military down there.
So
it's mostly researchers.
And they also go like, why does no one want to claim that? Why does no nation want to claim the continent or have it as a territory or something? Well, I'll get into it, but for one, it's a frozen tundra.
It's nearly uninhabitable.
Seriously, the only things that live there are emperor penguins, and they live more on the islands. Mm-hmm. So, and
there's a reason people go there for stretches of time, small stretches of time.
So other claims is we can't get over this ice wall because of lack of spiritualness. We are not awoken enough. And they didn't have too much to say from articles there. They didn't have too much to say on that except just spiritualness. Oh, it's just spiritualness.
We're not enlightened enough to get over the spiritual ice wall. Because
it does kind of go like in a prison theory. Like, we're in a prison here, and everything else outside of it is, I guess you could say, heaven, a better place to live.
Oh, so we're getting into transcendence and all of that.
A little bit.
I was gonna say the theory where it's like there's all the different oceans with different continents sounds very multiversy.
Yeah, I would say it's multiverse, but as well, like, with those multiple rings, one thing I did leave out is that we are told that our Earth is a lot smaller, and that with those rings, that the Earth is actually way bigger than what we're being told.
But it's flat.
But it's also flat. So, but that's what I don't get about flat earthers. They say, well, it's a ring around the Earth that holds the water in, but it also could be. I'm like, so which is it? Which is it? Like, I don't like.
So which one is it?
Like, can you
explain?
Explain, you flat earthers. There's another claims that we can't go over it because of a divine power or a law of the universe in which we don't understand yet. I feel like flat earthers on this are trying to make it make sense by giving answers like this that they can't explain themselves. It's just spiritualness. Oh, it's just a divine power. No, it's just a law of the universe that we just don't understand.
It reminds me of QAnon. Just do your research, but not there. But do your research.
Oh my God. Let's not get started on that. Another claim is our government doesn't want us to leave because they'll lose control of us and the world that they created. Others say that the reason why we can't get down to Antarctica or get near the ice wall is because it's guarded by NASA or other world agencies, which, from what we've been told, NASA's severely underfunded. So how are they going to have this whole perimeter of this ice wall just no one can get to?
Did you know that NASA was originally started to research the ocean?
Yeah, I also have a whole thing I want to do in conspiracy theories about that. That's a trip as to why they stopped exploring the ocean and wanted to explore space.
Yeah.
So
sorry. Anyway,
you're good. And my other thought is with the agencies, like, so all these countries just have expendable people that they can just have out at the ice wall, and the equipment out there too. What do they just have battleships just floating?
Yeah, who's maintaining the ice wall?
Well, the ice wall is created by the Earth. And
yeah, but who's maintaining the borders of the ice wall?
Well, that would be the world's agencies. You don't know which agencies. It's just agencies. So
yeah, those guys.
Those guys, exactly. Now, everything we just said, and you've actually said one of the debunkings in here as well, so I'm going to go over some of the debunkings here now.
Okay.
So, according to experts that actually study how glaciers act and how land masses are in geology and all this stuff, an ice wall of that size would need a land mass of great size, such as that ice wall, to keep its structure. If it was literally just sitting there,
just floating ice,
it wouldn't survive.
No.
And so, but they would say it's like, oh, there's like a rim.
How big is this ice wall?
As big as the Earth.
But like height. If you're like next to the ice wall.
If you were looking directly up at it, it said it was almost 12,000 feet high.
Okay, who measured it?
Exactly. Exactly. I
just want to see the measurements.
I want to see someone actually with like a tape measure or something go out there. And, like,
I want to see a picture of the ice wall.
This is why I love these kind of stories. I love these kind of conspiracy theories because they're just so like, they're fun to think about, but it's like, really? That's how you think? Also, Antarctica is protected by the Antarctic Treaty of 1959, which basically states no one nation can own, claim it, or anything. No military operations can take place down in Antarctica, and it's only for research purposes. Now, also take that with a grain of salt because more often than not, we never know what the militaries of the world are doing. But by the Treaty of 1959, no military action can take place on here and only for scientific research purposes.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, there's only ever researchers down there as far as
exactly.
I know. And I'm pretty sure those researchers would have a thing or two to say if, like, suddenly military shit started going down there.
Oh, absolutely.
Also, what a shit place to do military anything.
I mean, realistically, like, where can you think? I mean, the only place that you would to do military activities down there.
Like, if you're testing bombs, you're just making a bunch of ice cubes for the ocean.
That it's
depending
just,
on where you test it.
But at the same time, it's like, how are you supposed to build like the scientific research labs? They're pretty small.
They're very small.
Like they're like to have like military operations going on down there. There is no way they're going to build.
Especially on top of how much you have to bundle up to just go outside for 10 minutes.
And even if you are in Antarctica too, because a lot of those research facilities are more on the like the coast of it and not mainland. Because in mainland, you have hundreds of feet of ice. How are you supposed to put any structure down to the actual ground in which you can put a structure on and build a foundation on?
What they're mostly doing is researching those hundreds of feet of ice.
Exactly.
And taking data from...
Which we'll get into that too a little bit. I got some fun facts that include that.
So excited.
Antarctica has been regularly traveled to since the 1760s, whether it be explorers.
Austin's got a little fabulous hand up while he's giving me that fact.
I don't know why I did it. It just felt right. Don't judge me, woman.
I'm not. It added a little spice to the...
Spice. So, yeah, Antarctica has been regularly traveled to since the 1760s. At that time, it was more explorers than anything else.
I would think so.
But was not physically observed. And what I mean by physically observed is landed on until 1820.
That's still way sooner than I would have thought.
Right? It's like from like 1760. It took them 140 years from the first time probably seeing Antarctica and getting it regularly visited to actually getting onto a coast.
Some
Peats.
Getting some peats onto the ice, onto the coast.
Antarctica is considered an international continent by the UN because all the nations basically have agreed of that 1959 treaty to have it only for research purposes. So they don't consider it to be owned by anybody, like I said before, so it's just an international continent. Antarctica has had roughly 74,000 visitors a year since 2019, exclude 2020, obviously, but 74,000 visitors a year. And I actually had a coworker down in Antarctica about 3 months ago.
Oh.
And he showed me all these pictures.
What was
and
he doing down there?
He was on like a tourism thing.
Oh, that's right. So there's some cruises that like bop over there.
No, like these are not even like cruises.
Oh, I thought there were cruises.
No, these are.
I don't actually know.
You actually fly down to South America. You go to Argentina, and from there, you take a kind of like a mini battleship. That's what I think they're like a little mini battleship. And you take it out, and you can whale watch. You can you can watch the penguins. You can go on the islands that are around Antarctica, and there's even times where you can even go out and stand on a glacier as well. Like all these pictures he was showing me, I'm like, this is really cool. And you got to see some research labs as well. Like it was.
How much do you think that cost?
I don't know, but I will mention a website that you can go to check out this stuff later. So
okay. It
was really interesting. So like you were saying on the research portion, so I wanted to go into kind of what or touch on what research does happen down in Antarctica. Mm-hmm. Astrophysics, so to understand the universe and our place in it. They do research down there of that. Geospace science, which is a study of the region of outer space near Earth. So like the atmosphere, all the mini atmospheres we have.
Our local outer space.
Our local outer space. They study biology and ecosystems, geology, geophysics, glaciology, which I didn't think was an actual thing, but they have a word for it.
Everything's a thing.
Everything is a thing. Ice cores as well, which I didn't understand what they meant by ice cores, but basically what they do is they take a huge drill and they drill out like a huge cylinder, hundreds of feet long.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah. And when you were saying that, I was like, oh no, she's giving a lot away.
Sorry.
You're good. But yeah, I didn't understand until I was like.
Have you ever seen those videos where they drop like an ice chunk back down, like a little ice cylinder back down?
The sound I was watching one on Sunday. The sound it makes is eerie.
You can hear the speed it gains as it's going down because of how far it's going down.
Oh my! Literally hundreds of feet. Mm-hmm. There's hundreds of feet of ice before you even get down to any type of rock of any kind. Mm-hmm. And they also, obviously, they study ocean and climate systems as well.
Wait, so there is rock under Antarctica?
Oh yeah, there's a full continent under Antarctica. It's not just ice. Like there's actual crazy. Like Earth continent underneath of it.
Do you have to like climb up the side of the glaciers to get on?
So it depends on where you go, because there's some lower spots, but there's a lot of spots that have like those big ice shelves that you're used to seeing like in movies and things like that. Yeah. But I mean, there's areas on the main.
When you say ice wall, that's what I think of.
Okay, and see, you know what's funny? When I looked up ice wall theory, the first thing that came up with was ice shelf Wikipedia, and I was like, no. I'm like,
I want the not true one. I want the not real one.
I want the conspiracy theory, damn it. So with, like I was saying, that email, that website is oceanwideexpeditions.com. And this is where my coworker actually went to, or a similar website, because on this website, you can actually go and you can look up, like, there's different subcategories within the website. So you can look, you can explore different islands there. You can look up different research that they're doing as well. And this is also a site where you can book to go and take these tours. Like, they literally have a tab, and I'm looking at it right now, that says special deals to see, like, to go around Spitsbergen, which I think is a island that they have there. You can go see polar bears, the ice, cleaning ashores. This is a cruise.
Polar bears.
There's polar bears down in Antarctica.
Since when?
Since forever.
I thought polar bears were only on the North Pole, and it was penguins on the South Pole.
Oh.
You're looking at the North Pole, aren't you?
Yep. They actually, I thought this was only expeditions to Antarctica. They also have expeditions to the Arctic as well.
The other end of the world, Austin, the other side.
Sorry. Here we go. Penguins. Search of emperor penguins, including helicopters. This cruise plus helicopters is about $12,000 to go on this expedition. That's on the high side. If you want to go to be there during the summer solstice for about $4,000 on the low end. I mean, that's not, I mean, to do, from everything that I'm reading here, I'm not going to go through everything that is included in this trip, but you get a free pair of binoculars.
Ooh.
For $4,000.
But like, think about like the airfare and then where you're going to stay and all of that stuff.
I don't know what this all includes, but so that's a really cool website, oceanswideexpeditions.com. There's also a blog on there by Caitlin Bishop, one of the researchers, and she basically just talks about all the different research that happens down there. It's pretty well articulated and very well put together. I thought it was a pretty interesting read. I mean, I made it about halfway through. I'm going to finish it up tonight.
Yeah.
But it's still interesting. Nothing that really has to do, like, you'd have to read it to understand what she's talking about. Because I'm like, I don't understand what she's talking about, because they're using very big words and sciencey stuff that I am not familiar with.
That's okay.
So, like I promised as well, I have the fun facts about Antarctica.
Give me the fun facts.
I'll give you the fun facts. So, in Antarctica, ancient human ancestor remains have been found on the mainland and on the islands.
Fucking what?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They found actual human remains and human fossils and bones.
That's crazy.
Isn't it? They also have found new fossilized species of different sorts of fish, dinosaurs, and different animals. They have found species that were only believed to be in Russia and Europe and Middle East that have actually been found in Antarctica as well. So it confirms the theory of that we did have a supercontinent at one point.
Yeah.
Which that is fascinating in itself. But if you understand tectonic plates, I mean, it makes sense that everything just kind of moved apart and is always moving. Mm-hmm. There have been many claims on who circumnavigated Antarctica first, basically like going around it and making a geological map of Antarctica. There are records, but there's not too many records that say that it was Portuguese explorer Ferdinand, and I'm going to butcher this last name, I can never say it, Magellan, Magellan.
Magellan?
Magellan, maybe. It's Portuguese, so I mean.
I would guess Magellan.
Magellan, okay. So Ferdinand Magellan, from what I found, says that he circumnavigated it in 1522. But there's not a whole lot of information as to when, where, how, why, except for, he went out and exploring.
He done it.
Apparently he done it. But I found more concrete evidence that British commander James Cook did it in 1773. So in 1902, Scottish explorers actually went out to establish a meteorological station in Antarctica, but they were stranded on South Orkney Island, just one of the many islands on the northeast part of Antarctica. And there's actually a building that was constructed when they got stranded there that you can still visit to this day. And they called it, when they first built it, because this building was built to house all the crew members of this expedition because they couldn't get through the ice pack. That's why they were stranded. And the winter was very harsh down there for obvious reasons. And they called it the Omond House. And the Omond House was named after Robert Omond, who was one of the directors of the observatory that was funding this expedition. And you could still visit the Omond House to this day, and it's still built by the rocks and everything. But the only reason why it's still being able to be maintained to this day is that the Scottish explorers had such good craftsmanship, it was being able to be held up because they didn't know how long they were going to be there for. And actually, if you want to see, I actually have a photo of it to show Hannah here. But that's what the building looked like. Just rocks.
Just rocks.
Just rocks.
I didn't realize that the whole flat Earth movement was turning into, or they were trying to turn it into a spiritualist movement.
Let's hear the fun fact to end this episode.
Okay, so this one is kind of two again. It's about mirrors. Mirrors in the house with a corpse should be covered, or the person who sees themselves within the mirror will die next. So if somebody dies in the house, you need to cover all of the mirrors and make sure you don't look in the mirror. Because if you see yourself while the corpse is in the house, in the mirror, you will die next.
So what if the corpse is in the house, but not near a mirror or in the mirror?
It says in the house, so.
Okay.
And then, if a mirror should fall from the wall and breaks itself, then somebody in the house will die soon.
Could you imagine poorly nailing up that mirror and it just falling like a week later?
Oh, God.
And you are like, you know.
You're just shitting bricks for the next
and you
3
weeks. know about this. And you're like, oh, fuck, I'm going to die.
That's why omens are so fun. All right. Well, thank you for sharing not your conspiracy theory, but that conspiracy theory with us. It was a lot of fun. I do like delving into conspiracy theories.
And they're so much fun. And
frequently don't have the patience to keep up with them.
Me neither, but I know there's plenty of conspiracy theories out there, and I love learning about them.
Yeah.
And they are just new things, and just being able to think about this and try to wrap your head around how did they come up with this?
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. I'm like, how did they come up with this? Like, who, like, where? Like, there's some legitimacy to some conspiracy theories because, yeah, there's an event happened or something, but it's like, just because you haven't been to Antarctica or been to the quote unquote edge of the world, it's like, oh, it's got to be an ice wall. Right.
It's insane. The leaps and bounds that go through these people's minds.
The backpedaling they do too.
And the backpedaling.
The vagueness. Oh, it's government. Oh, they don't want you to know. Who's they?
They, Austin. They. Obviously,
sorry.
It's them.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up episode 4 this time around. What do you think, Hannah?
Yeah, I think we're done this week.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye. The Bleeding Grave is hosted by Hannah Slavic and Austin Winger.
Music by Hannah Slavic.
You can find us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
You can listen to The Bleeding Grave on Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Google Podcasts.